Hi, I'm Shane Phillips, the CEO of the Phillips Group, and we're here at the HR Summit and Expo, the #1 HR event in the Middle East. And I'm here with a very special guest, Mr. Marcus Buckingham, who is one of the best-selling authors, actually has two of the best-selling business books of all time, and his latest book, 9 Lies About Work, has just been released. Welcome, Marcus.
Cheers, Shane.
So, what was your biggest insight in writing your latest book, 9 Lies About Work?
So, right now we're about to take all of our assumptions about people and turn them into algorithms that will be accelerated across all of our human capital platforms of machine learning and artificial intelligence. And so now is a really, really important time to figure out what our core assumptions about people really are. We're about to take them and deploy them at great scale. So what are the truths about people? That was really the impetus for the book. And underpinning it, we've just done this 19-country study of engagement around the world. And it turns out that although it varies a little bit country to country, overall you'd have to say 17% of people are fully engaged at work, which means 84% of people, 85% of people are just coming to work, which I think all of us who run companies, we know that's not good enough. So the point of the book really was to go, what have we gotten wrong? Or to use the Mark Twain quote, what do we know for sure that just ain't so? And how can we make sure that as we move forward, we build all of our people practices on what the data would show us is really true about the way people work and how we work best with each other.
And I think one of the lies was leadership is the thing.
Yeah, well the subtitle of the book is a Freethinking Leader's Guide to the Real World. So much of what we do in the world of HR is based on theory world, models, concepts, but not based upon a clear investigation of the real world as it actually is. Leadership is a good example. We tend to say to people, if you want to be better as a leader, you should acquire this thing called leadership. And we define leadership as having certain qualities or competencies, and we create competency models or leadership models. And yet, if you actually put the 10 best leaders you know up against a wall, and you interviewed them and analyzed them, you would discover that they are completely unique. Each one of them is different. None of them have every one of the required competencies you're supposed to have. Every one of them has some, and not all, which means that every one of them is optional. Every one of these leadership competencies is optional, which means they're just made up. It turns out the only thing that leaders have in common is followers. That's the only thing they have in common. So followership is a thing. We can measure that. We can ask a lot of questions of people and see whether or not they're willing to devote their future and their destiny to some person's vision of the future. We can measure that. But leadership, we can't measure that at all. There's nothing that the best leaders have in common with one another that we can measure. So whether it's things like leadership, or whether it's things like potential, we can't measure potential. So the idea that people have potential is made up. Everyone can grow, everyone can get better, but there's no such thing as a hypo and a lopo. It's just made up. So an awful lot of the things that culture is another one. The people care which company culture they work for. Seems like a lovely idea, but if there was such a thing really as company culture, then we should be able to see one company has a measured lived experience that is uniform and different than another one's. But we never find that. We can never find that. So things like culture, things like potential, things like leadership are lovely made up concepts, but they're not reflections of the real world at all. And it makes HR, it gets us into trouble when we start building real practices out of made up concepts.
So if we were to take your research and apply that now, say, I'm a company, I want to hire my next CEO or my next greatest leader. So you would say, scrap all the usual assessments of vision, strategy, financial acumen, etc., and focus on measuring followership as one of the core metrics. Is this the right CEO for your company? And let's look back at what his followership history has been. or her followership has been. Is that what you're suggesting?
When you really push on it, what defines high performance versus low performance is what team are you on? Not which company you join, what team are you on? We know that the best leaders are people who build incredibly effective teams. So if you want to hire a really good CEO, you start by going, how effective is he or she at building highly productive, high-performing teams? If you can really understand that, and then of course, teams of teams, and teams of teams of teams, if you can really understand that, how does this person, not how well does this person match up to our model, but how does this person, how have they proven their ability to build highly productive, high-performing teams? That's the best insight you could ever get from the real world about their ability to be your next CEO or be your next CXO.
Right, and so then you mentioned high potentials don't exist.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that? Because a lot of people do feel that, hey, here's someone, like here we have a famous story in the Middle East of the Lamantera, which was a horse, didn't come from the right pedigree, and it ended up becoming a championship horse, although by all other measures, it was not possible for that horse to become so successful.
Around the world, we have, in HR, we've created this idea of 9-box grids, where it's performance and potential on the X and the Y. And if you're top right, you're high performer, high potential, you're a hypo, and we give you a label, you're a hypo. And we say ourselves that you've got this quality, it's called potential, and it's a special substance. It's independent of context, it's independent of job, it's independent of what you're doing. It's just wherever you go, you take this thing with you like a bucket with a special liquid in it that turbocharges your learning, your performance, everything. And if you've got a lot of substance in your bucket, you're a hypo. 15% of people in the workforce are designated hypos. The rest of us apparently are lopos, no-pos. So we have a hole in our bucket, or nothing much in our bucket. As though we wander around, and we're fine, we're doing okay, we're working, but we're not the hypo. The truth of the matter is you try and measure that substance in the bucket. Try and measure something called potential that you have maybe and I don't have, that is independent of the job you're doing now, Shane. It just, you take it with you wherever you go. Have we ever been able to measure this thing called potential? And the answer to that question is no. There's no thing that you take with you, independent of role or context, that is called potential, that you have a lot of, that I don't. That's made up. Every single human being that works in a company can get better. Everyone can get better. Everyone can grow. Everyone has a chance to learn. There's no such thing as potential that you have high of and I have low of. It's just been it's an oversimplification on HR's part. We like to categorize people. Take that horse, Lamantera, if they worked for a company, we would not have designated them a hypo. They didn't have the pedigree. They didn't come from the right parents. They didn't have the right genes. And yet, you know what? We found the right races, the right context in which they could grow and shine. Same is true of human beings. Every single person working for a particular team can get better. Every single person in that sense has momentum. But to have a designation that 15% of people are hypos and everyone else is not, is like apartheid. You're going, you guys have got it, and you all don't got it. It's part of HR's desire to tidy the world up. And it's wrong.
And so you feel that this is actually, in an effort to try to create a high-performance culture, it's actually counterintuitive, and that the labeling of hypos is limiting their ability to drive performance.
Yeah, well, it's made up. There is no such thing as a hypo. It's not real. It's theoretical. It's categorical. You've got it, I don't. And of course, it's the end of a conversation. So it's like, are you a hypo? Boom, stamp. We shouldn't have it be the end of a conversation. Every single person can grow and get better. If you want to have a high-performing team, having the designation hypo hurts you in terms of your ability to get the most out of the people on your team. The best team is filled with lots of individuals. It's like the best team leaders play chess with each of their players. They don't play checkers. They don't imagine that everyone moves in the same way. They've got a knight and a rook and a queen and a bishop, and for you to say that a pawn has no potential just means that you don't understand how to play the pawn. For you to say that you wish the castle would be the knight, it's just you not understanding how to play the game. The best team leaders know that each person on the team has unique qualities and that each person on the team can grow, maximize those unique qualities. That's the way you build a high-performing team. Coming out with a designation like high potential is just, it's just a massive oversimplification on the part of HR.
When you look at the research you've done now, you've traveled the world and you're still obviously traveling extensively. What's your prediction on what the future of HR and this leadership thing will be?
Well, weirdly enough, if I push and push and push on everything that we've done in terms of understanding performance and engagement, as simple as this sounds, the doorway to get into there is teams. Everything is teams. If you say you work on your team, you're twice as likely to be fully engaged than if you don't. At the moment, HR can't see the teams. We've built boxes on an org chart because most HR systems are extensions of financial systems. So we have boxes on boxes on boxes on org charts. And pretty much everything we do with our people flows through the org charts, which means we miss the work. The CHRO of Google has no idea where his or her work is. The CHRO of Facebook can't see her work. She doesn't know where the teams are, who's on the teams, which are the best teams, or how to create more teams like the best teams. Why? Because HR has built tools to serve HR. The only way for HR to become increasingly relevant and powerful and helpful moving forward is, counterintuitively, to build tools not for HR. If we build tools to help team leaders and team members get the best out of one another, then they will voluntarily use them. When I'm trying to pull together a team, an agile, cross-functional, dynamic team to get something done together, then if you've built me tools that help me do that, like Jira, like Slack, these are collaboration tools, then I'll use them as a team leader. And if I'm constantly looking to pull people together and get work done together, then HR can suddenly start to use that data to see where the real work is. At the moment, our biggest problem as HR professionals in the world of work is that we can't see any of the work. As crazy as that sounds when I say that, we can't see the work because we can't see the teams. We can't see the teams because we haven't built tools for team leaders and team members. We built tools for ourselves. And then we wonder why people don't use our goal-setting tools, or they don't use our succession planning tools, or they don't use our employee engagement tools, or whatever the tools are that we've built. So weirdly, the future for us in HR is keep building tools not for us. If we do that really well, we'll suddenly start to see the work, and then we'll be able to make the work better.
Well, Marcus, thank you so much for sharing some of your insights with us.
My pleasure.
That was Marcus Buckingham, one of the greatest authors of our time. He has 2 best-selling business books of all time, and his latest book, 9 Lies About Work, has just been released. And I'm Shane Phillips, the CEO of the Phillips Group, and we're here at the HR Summit and Expo, the #1 HR event in the Middle East.